Hi there, welcome. It is the World Mission Update. My name is Rusty Everett. He is Greg Kelley, and he is the CEO of World Mission, one of, if not the finest missionary groups in the entire world, because what they do well, they do right, they're an amazing group, and I'm just honored to be here to be a tiny part of this great organization. Before we get started, would you please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you make sure you don't miss any of the programs, and share it with one of your friends. All right, Greg, we are going to Pakistan today.
We are, absolutely, Rusty.
Why Pakistan?
Why Pakistan? We work with unreached people groups, right? We talk about it every week on the World Mission Update. In Pakistan, it's the second most populated Muslim country in the world. It's just a massive country. I mean, you're talking about 219 million people, and like 217 have never heard the gospel. So it's got some tremendous dynamics just from the religious standpoint, but then where it's located geographically. So you've got strategic borders, of course. We hear about Kashmir and the India border and the disputed lands of Kashmir and Jammu with India. But you got a really long border, is just as long as it is with India, with Afghanistan, and then a little further south of that, Iran. So Pakistan borders all of these countries that are some of the most heavily concentrated, unreached areas with the gospel anywhere in the world. I think there's an argument that can be made that this would be ground zero of places in the world where the gospel's never been, and for a lot of different challenging reasons. But Pakistan for us is a massive priority.
Okay, and it's difficult to reach there just because of all of the countries that aren't real friendly or open to the gospel, right?
Yeah, exactly. 1947, when they got their independence from Britain, both India and Pakistan, they kind of drew the lines. It's like, okay, the Hindus are here, the Muslims are here, and Kashmir kind of fell in between. If you were to look at Kashmir from an India perspective, you would say it's the only state in the country of India that's majority non-Hindu. So it's about 60% Muslim. And so Pakistan, I mean, once you start talking about territorial sovereignty, Rusty, that's really the issue. I mean, they're fighting over it. It's almost like a North-South Korea, the line as far as guns on both sides pointing at each other. So and they're both nuclear powers, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of dynamics there, but in both places, the gospel really hasn't been. So we're actually very active doing treasure. We've distributed treasures by the thousands in every single province, state of Pakistan. And we're seeing the Lord do tremendous things, Rusty. And the thing that I would add is, because it's such a dominated Muslim environment, it has some of the fiercest persecution of anywhere in the world that we deal with. So when these individuals come to know Jesus and they make a public stand for the gospel, it is at great peril. And in some cases, people are even giving their life just to follow Jesus in Pakistan.
I'm looking at a picture here of a large group gathering. Looks like kind of a church service.
Yeah, so these are the people who, God bless them, they are the minority followers of Jesus. They are mainly illiterate people. So what we're being told is that Christians in Pakistan are almost to the 80 and even 90 percentile case when you think about just pure illiteracy. So that's why the treasure in Pashto and Urdu, those are two of the main languages that we'll distribute, are just gobbled up. So they'll take these, they'll be in these prayer meetings. And by the way, one of the ways the Lord is moving right now, Rusty, in Pakistan is through signs and wonders. And we'll hear this in these places like in Afghanistan, and Pakistan, even on Iran, and Indonesia, where there's a dominance of Islam, and people are being healed. Jesus is touching miraculously. People who, when you get into these other religions, we just mentioned the religions, but when people open themselves up to Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, they're opening themselves up to spirits. And there's a lot of deliverance that's taking place where people are being set free who are bound. That's why the gospel says why Jesus came was to set the captives free. And I can't think of a better, more powerful visual of that than someone being who has demonic activity and being totally set free of that. We're seeing that in Pakistan. And because of that, that's that testimony of the power of the gospel that's causing people to run to Christ despite the face of great persecution. That's what's going on in this meeting right here.
And you see in these pictures, you've got the very colorful women, and they're listening to the treasure. A couple of pictures like that.
Just one people group in the northern part of Pakistan. Precious, precious people speaking Urdu language, and they'll gather together. And so they're out there. What do people do who are day to day, right? They're surviving day to day. They're out there maybe working their plants, getting some harvest. They're dealing with their animals. And so they're busy every day. I mean, these are some of the hardest working people you've ever met in your life. And they're taking their children with them, and they'll just throw the treasure around their neck as they're out in the fields, as they're fellowshipping together, listening to the word of God. I mean, Rusty, and when I say listen, I'm talking, we hear all the time from Pakistan. I'll ask them, how long were you listening to the treasure? Until it stopped. I mean, they turn it on, and they might be listening for 4 to 5 hours at a time, just saturating themselves with the Word of God.
And you can see here, you've got a woman getting baptized in Pakistan. That probably doesn't happen a lot, does it?
It doesn't happen a lot, Rusty. And what we see so much in these places is that demonstration. It's not an act of salvation, a water baptism. It's identifying with the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. That's why water baptism is so powerful, even modeled by Jesus himself. And so many of the places that will do treasure distributions, when someone says, I want to become a follower of Jesus, our leaders will challenge them. Hey, there's a very important step to identify with your new life in Jesus, and that's water baptism. They go through and they explain it. They talk about where it's at in the Bible. And interestingly, the water baptism is what triggers some of the most aggressive persecution, because the leaders, the Muslim leaders in this case, realize, okay, we've seen people raise their hands. Maybe there's large gatherings and all these people raise their hand, and they'll pay attention to that. But when someone gets water baptized, oh my goodness, they're serious. And so it's a massively important thing, these moments when people are water baptized, and we celebrate it. It's a
big, big, big deal. Another big deal going on in that part of the world is there is some... It happens every spring. I've been to Israel 10 times, and people every year go, boy, there's fighting over there. Why now? Okay, it's the same every year. It always starts in the spring because it's too cold to do anything, and then the spring comes and the guys get restless because all they've been doing is sitting around smoking and drinking coffee in the Palestinian areas, and then they go, well, boy, it's time to get all riled up and get started again, and it's happening again this year.
It's happening again with Israel.
By the way, do you agree with my description there? Am I pretty close?
Yeah, I mean, there's dynamics that are going on that make it, very complicated, the Israeli and the Palestinian issue. But I mean, if we were, I tell people, hey, if you're in the U.S. and you're living in one of the northern, states, Montana, North Dakota, Idaho, somewhere up there, even Minnesota, and Canada decided to just kind of shoot some bombs indiscriminately, and wherever they land, you probably wouldn't be too happy about it. And that's the life of Israeli citizens from Hamas,
and the weapons. Since we gave a whole bunch of money to Iraq, I don't mean to be political, but I'm going to do it for a second. Iran, excuse me. The weapons have gotten a lot better. When I was there, I almost got hit by one of them. I think they're called Katyusha rockets, right? Something like that. And basically, what they are is like big metal bottle rockets that they just shoot up in the air and then they fall and hopefully hit somebody. It's just a big metal, almost a gas tank kind of thing. I almost got hit by one. I'm talking, I don't know, 50 feet, 100 feet away. I mean, it was pretty darn scary. But now it's pretty sophisticated, and it's not like one or two. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of these coming in, and they're targeting schools. Yeah. And of course, it's a hot item right now. The reason Rusty and I are talking about it is because the Muslim majority countries in the world, like Pakistan, right? I've just said, 99% Muslim country, the leaders are calling for everybody to condemn Israel for their response to these attacks that are happening against the Palestinians. And it's really put Christian leaders in a very awkward place. Those leaders that are open are really respected, Rusty, even in Pakistan. Here's why. Because so many of the Christian leaders through organizations like World Mission are administering humanitarian aid, and they're loving they call them their cousins.
the Muslims in Pakistan. You're not going to get a Christian leader who's in Pakistan to come on and start bashing Islam. They're not going to do that. They love them. They want to honor them, respect them. They call them their cousins.
Right.
Just from a standpoint of, hey, these guys are different than us. We need to reach them with the love of Jesus. And that's what they do. So they're respected. Christian leaders are respected. So what's happening is the leaders, the ayatollahs and others who are leading Pakistan, the Muslim community, are calling out Christian leaders to condemn Israel. And if you don't, you yourself will now become a target. And so this is going on all across Pakistan right now.
And we've got these pictures, down with the USA, down with Israel, in English and in Farsi. And then we've also got the flags of the United States and Israel on fire right in front of us.
Yeah, these things are going on, and they're just complicating everything we're trying to do with the gospel, Rusty, because it just distracts people, and it puts issues in front of them that really take away from what the Christian leaders are trying to do. They're trying to share the love of Jesus, and they're being cornered off and called out and threatened themselves because of this issue going on with Israel defending itself against the Palestinian aggressions. So we need to, it just adds another challenge. These places that are unreached, Rusty, that don't have access to the gospel, already have political barriers. There's religious barriers. There's culture barriers. There's historical barriers. And when you throw something like this in there, I mean, it just wilds up the mobs into frenzies, which become a massive barrier. And so we just need to be aware of that when we're ministering in a place like Pakistan as we're praying. And that's what Rusty and we're really calling you to pray too. Pray to the Lord of the harvest to send forth the laborers into Pakistan, and that they would have courage and boldness as they're dealing with this. But it's important for you and I to be equipped with what's going on, so we understand the state of the harvest and the conditions, so our prayers can be not only faith-filled, but also filled with knowledge and understanding.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, has this, I mean, obviously this has affected your ministry in Pakistan right now. Have you had to shut it down temporarily? What's going on? Or can you even talk about it?
Yeah, while we had recent interviews scheduled, we're doing a feature on Pakistan here in the next couple of weeks. And we had several interviews scheduled on a Zoom with our leaders. And one of them, because of this issue, had to back out. They said, I am way too under the spotlight right now. If the last thing I need is to be online anywhere. And, you know, it's quite honestly, Rusty, it's a good reminder for our listeners. When we're talking about world mission, almost everywhere we work, people who come to Christ are threatened. I mean, that's persecution is a great barrier to the gospel. And so it's a reminder of that. But we did have, it's affected our ministry. Our guys, I would say, I mean, they're full of courage. They're full of boldness. But we use the reference being wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove everywhere we're doing ministry. And sometimes that being wise as a serpent, the wisdom says, pull back, take a lower profile for the things are a little bit too hot right now.
Yeah.
So we can't have our leaders getting taken out. I mean, they are the key to multiplication of churches, the treasure listening groups, and leadership training. And so we can't have that. We have to protect them at all costs. So this is affecting things for sure.
Absolutely. And you know, we're at a time where the world is going through tough times, and these folks that Greg is trying to reach, they are being hit even harder than most people in the world. These are people that are very impoverished, and being that impoverished, they depend on the kindness of others and in groups like Greg's. But, you know, things haven't been moving as easily, although I'm hoping that things have loosened up a little bit on restrictions around the world. Have they?
A little bit.
Okay. Not a lot.
Asia's slower to come. On Africa, we're seeing a little bit more opening, no doubt about it.
Okay. Well, if you could help with these difficult challenges, you know, you can help by just sending in some dollars. Think about all of the, and I've seen them. Okay, we're going to go and meet in this country. Okay, well, it's going to take 2 months for us to figure out how to do it. You know, 50, 60, 100 moving parts. This is a very complicated process that World Mission goes through, and it's difficult, it's challenging, and the only thing we need is your prayers and your dollars. So if you'd please pray for Greg Kelley and his great team around the world at World Mission, but also go to worldmission.cc and see where you can help. Are there any needs right now, Greg, that you guys have?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, just using Pakistan, Rusty, you've got 180 million people that are 0.00% Christian. We are in a desperate situation where we need to get 10,000 treasures in there between now and the end of the year. They're just crying out for more treasures, which is about $40. And I mean, for our listeners, Rusty, to think about just using those border areas, the border of Pakistan, India, totally chaos. Border of Pakistan, Afghanistan, terrorist insurgencies coming back and forth on a daily basis, attacking people. The borders with Pakistan and Iran. Imagine the difficulties and challenge is you'll never go there. I'll probably never go there physically, but you can go there tomorrow. That's the kind of impact that we can have, is going to these places because of our infrastructure that we've created over the last 25 years. Rusty and I want to take you there. Through your prayers, through the financial support, and we will be the hands and feet of Jesus. You will be the hands and feet of Jesus. But we just need you to take that step of faith, just like so many of our partners are risking their life. We need you to ask the Lord what that step of faith looks like, and man, are we going to have an impact on the kingdom?
Absolutely. Please go to worldmission.cc and give where you can. We really, really appreciate it. Worldmission, not .com, .cc, worldmission.cc. Also, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget, and the little bell, the notification, to let you know every time a new World Mission Update podcast has been released. And until next, share it with somebody, would you? We appreciate it. Put it on Facebook or something. Share it around. Until next time, he's Greg Kelley. I'm Rusty Humphreys, and this is the World Mission Update Podcast.